and we're back. This is episode 2 of PGS ALL-STARS, and I'm your host, I'm here with TheRichard and Tony, aka Bunyon Snipe. And today we're going to be discussing episode 1 of Masters of the Universe Revelations. It's the new series that came out on Netflix about a few weeks ago. And we're going to be looking at the 5 episodes that were released. Today is going to be episode 1. And I have to say, episode 1 is called The Power of Grayskull. And I don't know about you guys, but I was incredibly excited when I learned the series was coming out. I have such great expectations for it. And, a lot actually happens in this series. I'm getting excited here. Like in the first 5 minutes, Teela is being made man-at-arms. And at the same time, Skeletor and Evelyn want to tear down Castle Grayskull.
Yeah, I think more happens in this one episode. In fact, I'll go as far as to say more happens in this one scene than happened, and this is going to be controversial, than happened in the entire series of the Filmation series, because every episode of the Filmation series had a start, a middle, and an end, and you could watch them in any order, and it didn't really matter because there was no real there was no sort of story arc, and in this scene, it's amazing. So you've got He-Man in an almost spaghetti western style situation. He's got this long flowing cloak with a hood on. He's sitting on Stridor, and he's got Spikor and Clawful in tow, tied up. And he's come to deliver. For some reason, he's come to deliver them to Castle Grayskull. Wasn't quite sure why he was doing that. I'm sure he would, he would want to take them to like a prison or something. But whatevs. I'm sure there was a reason he did that.
It was a pit stop. He just had to, just stop and pick up some coffee or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. It wasn't He-Man.
Right.
And it wasn't even Stridor. It was the evil, palette swapped version of Stridor, Nightmare, and he was Fakor. And of course, Spikor ended up being Skeletor, and Clawful was Evelyn. So this happened.
Yes. It was a surprise, of course. And if I always get surprised, I know I shouldn't be surprised because the episode is meant to have twists and turns in it. But I was surprised to see that it was not He-Man. And that's okay. And then, at the same time, as we said, Teela is becoming, she has this big ceremony. It's a big deal. She's becoming, the new man-at-arms. Adam, who's at Teela's man-at-arms ceremony, of course, they have to stop the ceremony because, all this is happening at Castle Grayskull, and he runs over there to help, defend the castle.
He runs over there to help Cringer, who's suffocating.
Yes. And then, of course, He-Man and Teela, are doing what they normally do, helping to defend the castle. And, at this point, Skeletor and Evelyn are there.
That is by far the best combat we have ever seen of any Masters of the Universe. In that, an extension of what Tony was saying, we get to see more characters, more vehicles, more action. Everything was on display. And a special note, they used a lot of the original artwork from the marketing in this first episode to set the tone, to kind of bridge the original mini comics and the artwork of the boxes with the filmation and with the new style. And that was fantastic.
Yeah, it certainly did add to the authenticity, didn't it?
Yeah, this did. For me, this was very similar. I felt it's very similar to what The Mandalorian did. They took a lot of the Kenner stuff, like the troop transport, and they made it flesh. That they actually made it canon. And they there's a lot. They used a lot of the toys that weren't actually used in the Filmation series. They really went to town, and it was great to see.
I agree with you. And then there's kind of like a scene in the episode where I guess Skeletor kind of tricks He-Man into inadvertently opening up the Hall of Wisdom. Like it's kind of and then now Castle Grayskull is vulnerable because the magical orb is there and for everyone to access, so to speak.
Because he uses his sword properly.
Who would have guessed? I mean, would you? I wouldn't have guessed that that's how it gets open, but it was.
Well, it's because he
come and get me.
Well, of course, it was a beautiful double entendre, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
What he meant was that you actually stabbed someone with your sword, which throughout the whole of the Filmation run, that never happened.
Never.
He used it to bat things away. He would use it to
reflect.
It was always a defensive weapon. It was never an offensive weapon. And he actually used it to stab someone. And he used it as a key to open this portal.
Who knew?
Well, actually, the original castle has always been, if you collect both halves of the power sword, you can open up the gates to Castle Grayskull.
The drawbridge.
The drawbridge.
That's right. So, that sort of reflecting theme that comes out again in the series. And so, of course, that surprised me, but I'm sure maybe for other people they were not surprised by this. Now, something interesting that happens after this occurs and that orb is kind of exposed is that Skeletor does something that profoundly affects the series of events moving forward in this 5-episode series, and it involves the magical orb, right? So he he essentially breaks it or cracks it or does something to it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's one of these things. It's one of these things. Sometimes when you want something so bad, but it's like he's been trying to get the secrets of Castle Grayskull for his whole villainous career, right? But he didn't really know. I mean, he knew what he kind of knew. He knew that it was an awesome power that had the power of life and death, right? He had this vast power, but he wasn't really sure what he was going to get, right?
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly. And it certainly was an overwhelming sense of power when that magic orb was damaged. I mean, it was that Pandora's box that, no one should have ever really even been going into. And essentially it threatens the entire existence of Eternia, right? And so then we see something else that is pretty amazing. Is when the sorceress stops time. What do you think of that segment, that scene?
Yeah. Well, she pulled a Kylo Ren or whatever and froze. The only cool thing that Kylo Ren did in Force Awakens was stop the time. That was him, right? And everything's moving slightly slower. Well, she did that, which is very cool. We should know that she should be able to do anything, literally. She is super powerful. She is the guardian of, or the caretaker,
the
housekeeper. Yeah.
She was Goldie Hawn in House Sitter.
So it was really neat. I do wish that this episode was longer. I do wish we had seen more leading up to it, though everything does make sense to me as what happens next and everything, and in the future episodes. It makes sense to me.
And he disintegrates Mossman as well. Poor Mossman. What did Mossman ever do to you?
I mean, you're right. There was a lot going on. One thing that I noticed when she paused time was that Tila, kind of said, well, why did you do this? Because, it's a critical moment. And it, of course, even though she paused time, there isn't a lot of time. Maybe they have a few minutes or so just to kind of figure out what's going on. And once Tila asks her, she's like, well, if you couldn't, change things, or we don't have a solution, why did you pause time? Why did you do that? And I love how the sorceress says something like,
why did you bring me here? She says, and sorceress says, to see you one last time.
Yes. I mean, I thought that was
what? Yeah. And this is the first. So they
first official.
Yes.
Well, and they did it again. Obviously, Man at Arms wanted to do it later on.
Oh yeah. This is the third time. Yeah, they do it 3 times in this episode, actually. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so close. But yeah, and then, it's like, well, and then man makes the decision. It's like, well, there's only one thing we can do. I mean, you know.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have guessed that that's what was gonna. I didn't see this coming like in a long shot. Like this would have not been something that I would have guessed that would happen. Literally, like what in the first episodes, and it felt very quick. It felt like we got to the action so quickly, and for him to make a decision like that, he's always so self-sacrificing and just wanting to do the right thing. That I wasn't surprised that he was willing to do it, but it was surprising to me that it happened. I mean, I guess I kind of felt something else was going to happen, and that wouldn't be the course of events.
Yeah, and it's one of these things that was it's one thing's always irked me about the Filmation show was the fact that Tila was never brought in. She wasn't in on the secret, and I always thought that was it always kind of vexed me about that.
Wasn't it the like the second or whatever, Tila's quest, whatever, where they show what her real life is supposed to be, what her future will be, and then it's erased at the end of it. So we know what her future has in store. So that's why when the sorcerer said that, we know what's going to happen, and that sets up the rest of the show for a lot of the individuals who maybe aren't enjoying it as much as we are. They probably don't know that all of this is supposed to be happening. Just about everything that comes in the next few episodes is supposed to be happening.
Again, this is another thing that goes back to the cyclical nature of the Filmation show, in that nothing really changed. Nothing really happens in the Filmation show. You can put those episodes in pretty much with the exception of a few episodes. The 5-episode arc that made up the Secret of the Sword film, for example, had a story arc. But outside of that, you could pretty much show those episodes in any order, and the characters don't really grow. So it's basically every episode was throwing a new villain in or throwing a new good guy in. It's Buzz Off. It's Buzz Off versus Whiplash this week, and that was kind of the idea.
Well, to your point right there, another situation, another concern that comes up is, this is all about other characters and not He-Man. Well, there were adventures of just Buzz Off and Orko. They did have their little adventures here and there. Mm-hmm. So this is not unfounded. And it's we're seeing a lot of really good, I know we're about to get into the other episodes. We're seeing a lot of good character development that we did not have before.
And again, also, it's like, here's the truth, everyone. Not every kid who had Master of the Universe toys had He-Man. Mm-hmm. There were some kids, me included, that only went for the villains. There were some kids,
or the female characters.
Exactly, right?
I had a lot of She-Ra. Yeah.
Well, yeah. We know how much you like to comb that hair. But yeah, so it did feel good. I got to admit, getting those tangles out, there was something special.
Yeah.
But
I modify my characters, by the way. We'll talk about that in another episode.
But again, She-Ra's sword was a little comb, wasn't it? Do you remember that? Anyway, let's not go there.
Right.
But yeah. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. There are kids out there that didn't have He-Man, right? And they didn't want He-Man. So this idea, making He-Man the main character. I know. I always quite like the idea if they'd actually done an anthology series, you know, if Filmation had done an anthology series with every episode focusing on a different character, that could have been just as interesting, maybe more so.
Do the mini comics as an anthology.
Yeah. That's a great idea, and you know, maybe they will. I mean, this certainly is a step in the right direction of seeing something actually happen. So, you know, I don't think it would have made sense to repeat what we saw in the Filmation series. I think that would have fallen on, it just wouldn't have worked well. But they could have done that. They could have, if you know, they would have been within their rights to do that.
I gotta admit, that was one of the things I was kind of dreading. When he announced it was a continuation of the Filmation, or he said the 80s show, which was oh god, please not the New Adventures of He-Man. When they said, but I was really hoping, because my favourite iteration of He-Man with Prince Adam is the Mike Young series from the 2000s, which it was a 2-season run. Each season had a proper story arc. Characters evolved, they grew. The first season was basically He-Man versus the Rogues Gallery. The second season was the Snake Men came in. The third season would have been the Horde, and then the fourth season, I believe, would have been set in the future, and it would have been set around King He-Man and his offspring, and Skeletor, who was the son of Skeletor, kind of like I think he was the son of Skeletor and Evelyn. Something like that. He looked like a sort of green goblin with a skull mask on. But yeah.
Well, you can really see the difference, or I mean, the comparison to the Mike Young 2KX version.
Yeah, I think so. I think Skeletor was blue like them, but yeah.
No, we're definitely going to talk about all of this for sure. Because there's a lot of good stuff to talk about when it comes to Masters of the Universe.
Oh yeah. It's such a beautiful thing.
At some point, I guess, you know, Teela now knows the truth, right? And she knows that...
Well, she knows that Adam is He-Man. That's what she knows.
Right.
Yeah, so
she knows the truth about Adam and his secret as being He-Man. So, so she just found this out, and she seems to be very surprised by this. And... also, I guess the king finds out.
Yes.
Because he didn't, I guess, you know, let's say in this particular story, he didn't know. Marlena knew. Man-at-Arms seemed to know. And somehow, you know, I guess the king gets upset and he banishes Man-at-Arms from the kingdom.
Does, yeah.
Against character, though, that's one of there are a couple things that really irritate me. It's against King Randor's character to do this.
See, the thing is, this is what I think where me and Richard might disagree a little bit, is that I always kind of felt that King Randor was kind of a non-character. Certainly in the Filmation series, he was just kind of there, you know. He was just, well, you know, we've taken this character of He-Man, and we've given him an alter ego, because we have to make 2 action figures out of this one character. So it's like, well, we'll give him an alter ego, and it's like, well, if he's a prince, he's got to have parents, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of, you know, I always kind of felt Randor was kind of a non-character anyway, but yeah, so. I know. Whether it did seem horribly out of character, but he was upset. You know, he was upset. And again, Tila may have overreacted a little bit, but she'd been lied to. You know, she should have always been in the loop. There's no reason why she was out of the loop. It made no sense. I would be pretty angry too.
She couldn't let go though, even after months or years or whatever. That's another thing that kind of got under my skin. She was still pissy later on, but
and I was going to say, just to add to that, you know, of course, what we're talking about is that Tila gets very upset at this moment. You know, all these things seem to happen within a minute or so, where she kind of feels that, you know, this is very unfair, that she has to find out this way, I guess. And in addition to her father being banished, she feels like she doesn't want to be man at arms anymore, you know, I guess, for the kingdom. And she just kind of wants to walk away. She's upset about how all this stuff came out. And I agree. I think that her reaction, I had kind of joked around and said, is this, Masters of the Universe or The Grudge, you know, because she seems to holds on to this for a while. And I started to think that, you know, it might have been a combination of things for her as to why she was holding on to this for so long. And I think later on, maybe in episode 5, they kind of talk a little bit about whether or not she feels that, what she's expected to do is something that she has power over. Yeah. And perhaps part of the walking away is so I'm not going to say this is true. I don't know if this is true, but maybe part of walking away is so she doesn't have to deal with some of this stuff. So I don't know. But, you know, I'm just trying to work with the story that we were given. I don't like that she walks away.
It makes sense that there is a level of PTSD to this, and it grows, it accumulates over time and everything, frustration. And she's going off in a different direction, cutting her hair, doing different jobs. She's not in the Royal Guard anymore. She's a bounty hunter or whatever. She's doing kind of the opposite of what she was before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also think that the other thing that I was somewhat surprised by, because of course at this point, Adam has saved, we didn't talk about it too much, but Adam saved, you know, the universe essentially, you know, Eternia and the universe. And in order to do that, he had to sacrifice himself. And it was kind of that response, I think, that, you know, I wanted to see. Just her say, oh my God, I can't believe he did this. You know, at the same time, you know, I almost felt as if she would be so overcome by the fact that Adam, you know, is essentially gone, that, she really wouldn't be able to respond to any of the other stuff. She would just be so devastated from losing Adam because he was such an important part of her life.
That makes the most sense, would have made the most sense to me. Because of her love for him as a little brother, and then her affection for He-Man, and seeing them sacrifice to save. I mean, it's the ultimate deed to save everyone. And you know, some of the critics are saying, "Oh, they kill off He-Man in the first episode." No, they didn't kill him off. He sacrificed himself doing what he does. He did it right. And he saved everyone.
Yeah, he certainly did. And, we wouldn't have expected anything less if there was a way for him to save Eternia and essentially the entire universe. He was going to do it. So I think that was very interesting. And the final thing that I was going to say about that episode is Orko kind of pleads with Tila to stay and not to go. Like he says, please don't go, Tila, please, you know, we need you. And he always gets on my heartstrings, you know, because he's so sweet, you know. And this is an example of him there saying, come on, Tila, we can work this out. And she, she just, at that point, I think she was just already, made up her mind that she was going to go off on her own. But and so, overall, this is one of the most eventful episodes, as you mentioned, that I've ever seen, with so many different things going on. And things really did change quite a bit. for everyone in this episode.
Yeah, no, it was great. There was so back in 2011, 2012, there was a DC Comics run. It was called The Seeker, I think, in Master of the Universe. It was I think it was a 6-issue run, and it was a kind of it was what had happened is Adam stopped being, for some reason, Adam stopped being He-Man, and he was living out in the woods as a woodcutter. And that's where the story starts, and he gets brought back in, and he's kind of he gets all these, he has dreams of being He-Man, but he can't remember it, so he kind of wanders Eternia, and it's a pretty cool story. I can't remember what happened at the end of it, because I think I got about 3 issues in, and I couldn't get any more issues of it for some reason or another. Yeah, so yes, so and it's a very similar tone to what they've done with Revelation. I'm not entirely sure that it's based on it, but it's a very similar sort of post Master of the Universe story, and it has a very similar vibe to that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that was great to talk about that first episode. I mean, it certainly grabbed my attention. I did also just want to ask you both what you thought about the quality of the animation so far after seeing episode 1.
Yeah, I loved it.
Top notch.
Very
top
good.
notch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel the same way. What did you think about the voice actors in so far, let's say in episode 1?
I think they all did really well what they're working with. They all pulled their A game. There were some characters I had slightly different. Obviously, Merman, Kevin Conroy is great, but for some reason
we haven't seen Merman yet, right?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay, but you're right. We haven't seen it. I just
But,
in this episode alone, I was racking my brain. Cringer is the only one that I didn't like his voice.
Oh, I like Cringer. It's Stephen Root. How can you not like?
I know it's Stephen Root and everything. I just wish that we got a little bit of a growl. At least when he's stretching.
Well,
I'm not gonna lie.
You make a good point with that. Well, thanks for joining us again on PGS ALL-STARS and our special series for what we love about Masters of the Universe. Hope to see you again soon. Until then, take care.